This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for the Intentionality Gurus. And you may notice today, I'm going to be a little bit more intentional as I listen, because I went back and I was listening to a couple of our podcasts, Candace, and sometimes I sound like I have no idea what we're talking about. And it scares me. So I thought, I'm hoping our audience doesn't get that. But today, I'm really going to take that word intentional to heart and really, think of my answers a little bit better.
Well, I have to say that if it seemed like you didn't know what we were talking about, you didn't show it to me. I didn't notice. So.
Well, that's good.
And as we've said before, we don't rehearse beforehand.
Right.
We don't often talk about what we're going to talk about beforehand. So more to you in terms of your ability to stay on topic.
So tell us a little bit what we're going to talk about today.
Well, previously we were talking about bridging the gap to your genius zone, and all of this stuff we're talking about comes from The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, who has written many books, but this one in particular is particularly fascinating to me. So in the book, he goes from, when we're in our zone of incompetence, when we're in our zone of competence, and then our zone of excellence. And now we're going to bridge the gap to our zone of genius. So we foreshadowed some of that. And the last time we talked about some questions we can be asking ourselves about how we're, what's in our zone, what's not in our zone. And, when our hearts are singing and when they're, a sense of obligation and dread associated with what we're doing. So now we are, having the commitment to genius zone, and we're going to be talking about Einstein time. So what are your thoughts in terms of Einstein time?
Well, Einstein was a genius. And so it's probably trying to reach that peak.
Yeah, exactly. See, you were following, at least this time. So the idea is often when we think of time, and the author makes a distinction between how we normally experience time and how we could experience time as Einstein time. But when we think of time, and you can tell me if this doesn't apply to you, we can often have the experience of there's not enough of it, or it goes too quickly, or we didn't get everything we wanted to get done in that time frame.
Correct. Yep.
So that's never happened to you, right?
No, never.
Exactly. Right. Never ever happens to me, except every day. And even when I have insights into some of these things. So with Einstein time, this is where you have a different relationship of time. And what that can look like is having a sense that you are the master of your time. So are there moments when you've had that experience?
Wow. So I'm assuming that means that you maybe have carved out that niche so that you do what you want to do.
You got it. Spot on. All right. And so what were those like emotionally or physically in your body when you had, carved out time and you got to do what you set out to do?
I think it makes me feel obviously more capable, more efficient. And really, I'm intentionally thinking about what I'm doing rather than just going through the movements and then at the end of that time saying, what did I just do?
Exactly. I spent the time, but I don't feel like I have a lot to show for it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's not an uncommon phenomenon for a lot of us. And it doesn't mean that we're constantly in this other definition of time. And we're still going to have those moments because, we're human. But when you've had those times, how did that impact the other areas of your life or your week or whatever?
Well, you know, when I actually carve out the time and say, this is what I'm going to do right now, and that can even be my weekend job. I sort of separate myself from things that can pull me away from it. Which means I may put my phone on silent. I may intentionally, tell people who may typically disturb me, I'm going to be busy during this time. And it makes me feel basically, like you said, in charge and on top of things.
And did you have a sense of time limit or pressure, or?
I think I always feel that there's not enough time to do whatever it's going to be. Okay. And I'll give an example. On my weekend job, I'm only there for 4 hours. In the first hour, typically nobody wants to go through training or anything. So that first hour just drags like crazy. But then all of a sudden, they all realize, hey, Karen is going to be leaving soon. If we're going to do our training, whatever. And then that's when I start to feel there's just not enough time. And to be honest, I only need about an hour out of the 4 hours to do the training. But yet in my mind, the first hour was wasted. And now I've got to hurry up and get things done.
So that's a perfect example. And it's, again, so uncanny that we did not have this conversation beforehand.
No.
There's no way, but it is a perfect example. And it's just a matter of what? I mean, what's the word that toggles you from feeling the pressure or not feeling the pressure?
I think it's because, and I wrote about this morning in my blog, is that I have felt all along, most of my life, that I'm a do it now person. Do it now, complete it, and then there's plenty of time to do other things. And I'm one of very few people in a group who works like that. Everybody else seems to be, get done. And if it doesn't get done, it's no big deal. And so I know I add the pressure to myself, and depending who I'm working with, I can add pressure to them.
It's almost contagious.
Yep. Yeah.
And
that happens around the house as well. And I'll give you a real quick example. We got our new iPhones. I could not get my iPhone to be seen in my car, no matter what I did. So finally last night I said to my son, I've been asking you to do this for me. I really need you. Take my phone out to my car, see if you can get it set up. Okay. And went off and did something else. Half hour later, I said, I really need you to do this for me. Mom, I have all night. Well, you may have all night, but I've been asking you to do this for weeks. Finally, I just you've got to do it now. And he grabbed my phone, went out to the car, and I could see that the pressure I put on him, he didn't do it right the first 2 times, and he's blaming my car. And it's it may be because I couldn't hook it up. But then once he got it hooked up, he goes, I don't know what the hurry was about. And yet now I'm really feeling stressed. Okay. He got it done, but my stress, approached him.
But the point then is the amount of time, whether it was 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the actual number is, was the same.
Right.
All right. Didn't somehow expand, but it's our feeling about that time that was the element that changed.
Yep.
All right. And so when we have a relationship to time that is, it's not enough, it's not happening fast enough and all of those things, it doesn't feel so great. And when
Right.
we don't have that feeling, we have more ease with it. So would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what we just described was the difference between regular time, the way we normally experience it kind of unconsciously, unintentionally, and the doorway to Einstein time. So Einstein's time isn't a scientific phrase, but it was the author's phrase in terms of how we can expand it and have it be more than one dimension based on how we relate to it.
Hmm.
So Karen's pondering here.
Yeah, I'm really pondering that one because I mean, I live with two men in this house that even though they both wear watches, they don't know what time of day it is. Typically, they don't know what the day is. And it's always, it'll get done. And I live in a world where I wear a watch, I've got my phone. So if I feel like I haven't accomplished something, I'll look at my watch or the phone to see how much time in real time I have to get it completed. And yet they're just very laid back about it. And they still get everything done that they want to. I
And
just stress over it.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong to it except for the toll the stress takes
Right.
on us. All right.
Exactly.
So, and they may or may not perceive that stress or respond to it. Not that there's, anything right or wrong around that. It just may be a fact that it just doesn't show up on their radar, but it
Right.
shows up on your radar.
Yep, it does.
Okay. And sometimes you put it on yours, but
Yeah.
they seem to be impervious about that. So in the context of taking our zones of incompetence to excellence at a minimum, then possibly to genius, how might this conversation that we're having occur to you in terms of how you could navigate some of those concentric circles going out to the outer limit, so to speak, of genius?
I think in my case, it means almost making a list. And I don't know, I don't think I had the conversation with you. I think it was with somebody else the other day that I remembered a scenario that I went through in a class, and they gave us each this really tall vase. And they said, here are the things to fill it with. And, there were big rocks, small rocks, there was dirt, sand, and water. And I put the water in first. I couldn't get everything in. And it was shown to me at the end of this that if I put all the big stuff in first and put it in by size and then add the water, it would have filled. And that's usually what my problem is. I don't look at the big picture and take care of the big chunks first. It's like, oh, I thought of this, I'm going to do this now. And then I need to do this next. And yet, if I would have taken care of the bigger things, some of those smaller things may actually get completed as well.
So what was your biggest aha in terms of how that applies to your actual calendar? Because some of it's not of your making.
Right. So when I schedule myself or plan for things and I do it in that manner, what's the most important, at the end of the day, it is, wow, this was a good day. I can be tired. It can be just as exhausting as any other day, but I don't feel it as physically. The other days, like probably Tuesday of this week, I was starting to feel better and I just started doing things. And I really was jumping from one to another. And by the end of the day, if you asked me what I completed, I'd have to open up my calendar and look at everything and identify it that way because I had no idea what I had done.
So in the context of our conversation today and talking about, cultivating our zone of genius, some of the questions we can be asking ourselves, so this, kind of relates to those big rocks, is basically, am I trying to get more done in less time? That's going to add pressure and so on to things. And what does this relate to in terms of the big rocks, the big goals, the things that are most important to us at that particular week or time frame? And then what are some of the things that would be nice, like the cheap thrill, if I could get them done? It would be, like a little icing on the cake, but it's not the cake itself. And where in my life am I not taking full ownership on my time? Or what am I trying to disown, not take responsibility for, is another way to look at it. And what aspect of my life do I need to take full ownership of? So might those show up for you in this context?
So interestingly enough, when I think about planning for my day, I usually do it based on really what I need to do for the network. And I don't think about all those extra things that I do around the house. And if I don't plan and keep those in perspective, I'm not complete at the end of the day, not because they didn't get done, but because I didn't even acknowledge that, okay, I'm not going to do it. Hey, Alex, I need you to do this. Or I'm not going to do it today. That's something I can do tomorrow. But instead, I just put my blinders on. And then at the end of the day, I saw all these other things that didn't get done. And I didn't identify when they would. And that makes me feel very incomplete.
Yeah, I mean, it leaves us with a feeling of having things left unfinished. And that's like a little, they call it an open loop, kind of like a little blinking cursor in our brains. Oh, I didn't get to that. I didn't get to that. I didn't get to that. So what if you were to think about your approach to your days, your time use, your calendar, whatever phrasing you want to give it the shorthand, in terms of the rocks, the sand, or I guess it's the pebbles, the sand, the water, whatever else goes in there, in terms of identifying those extra things in the right sequence, so that there isn't that incompleteness or, oh, I didn't quite do as much as I should have done today.
So on the rare occasion when I do add it all together, I'm pretty good at identifying, where they are in that layer of things. My biggest issue, boy, I'm opening up my heart to everybody today. But my biggest issue is that I just want to prove myself all the time, that I don't normally give myself a chance to think and plan. That's why I was saying that when I was listening to these other podcasts that we had done, I intentionally decided I wanted to go through them because I've noticed a shift in my behavior, but is it really where I want it to be? And that's when, I was listening going, was I really listening to Candace? Did I really know what I was talking about? And so it has convinced me that when I put everything into the container in the proper way, I feel I feel complete at the end of the day, even if they aren't completed.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go out on a ledge here, and I might have the wrong theory from this, but it sounded to me that when you can go in with that approach, you feel like you own the day.
Yes.
And when you don't go in with that intentionality, so to speak, the day owns you.
Yes.
All right. And which one feels better?
Oh, when I own the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the more we can be walking in the direction of that will get you to your genius time.
Okay.
All right. So that the time pressure isn't, compressing your energy and enjoyment and so on. And you can then possibly, with some of the other things we talked about and we'll talk about, have that phrase that one person mentioned to me, like wearing life like a loose fitting garment.
Yeah.
There's an ease to it, which I think is such a wonderful sense if we can have that with time. So thank you, little guinea pig. I mean, you always rise to the challenge.
Well, and I have to tell our listeners that, if you just go back and, answers the questions or the comments that Candace is proposing, notice that she's not telling me I'm right, I'm wrong, or how to do things. And that's what I love about this coaching, because I make the choice of how I start my day and end my day. And I may know what makes me feel the best, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do it every single day.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
just being aware of that, can be helpful to say, okay, so it wasn't my best day. Let me figure out why it wasn't, and, plan for the next day.
Right. And it underscores the point that we all know intuitively, have a deeper inner wisdom about what's right for us. That's why it's gurus. I'm not the guru. We all are our own gurus. So we can pay attention to what's going on, understand some of those hidden forces that, cause us to think and behave and feel all sorts of different ways. And then we have those little forks on the road where we have a choice.
Absolutely.
Do it the way we've always done it, or, try on a different way. So.
Well, we will be back in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, everybody stay warm and dry. And let's see, time changes 2 weeks from this weekend. So,
oh, seriously?
Yeah, I can't wait. I need that sunshine.
Sounds good to me.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye
Thank
now.
you, Karen.
Bye.